Congratulations, pervert, you have stumbled upon a dirty book from the olden days, and you have studiously flicked straight through to the rudest bits, and a chuckle to yourself in your squalid little bedroom. Grubby little bedroom.
Personally, I don't actually read books. I read trophies. I pose with the beheaded lions of literature like an idiot hunter who trots around the savannah in +4s brandishing a blunderbuss. Look at my blue beardy bookshelf next time you come round. There you'll find all the dead classics stuffed and mounted. Evidence of a prize-winning attention span. Or intellectual Viagra. But to quote a former would-be poet laureate, books are a load of crap.
So the guy who wrote the book in the 1500s was called Rabelais. I think I'm saying that right. He was a Benedictine monk and then a Franciscan monk, or the other way around. And he was a scholar of ancient Greek, and he was a surgeon. So that's all fine. But what's this thing about him being a humanist? What is that? I feel like I've looked it up before, but I can never remember what it means.
I'm just wondering how to trick you into some sort of sound bite without you realising.
No, you probably won't trick me into it, because I'll be looking out for it.
The novel glorifies bodily vulgarity and is also a book of arcane knowledge.
I'm really interested in what you can learn about people's underlinings. You know when you used to go to the library and get a book out and you'd hold it by the spine and go like that, and then it would fall open at the filth.
Just a dick. Yeah.
When somebody asks me about Gargantua and Pantagruel, I get a bit flustered. What's the plot, they say? What's it about? What are you about? Plot isn't the point. Plots are for graveyards, mate. Narrative is the first refuge of the scoundrel. Deep down, I'm clearly getting defensive because I don't have the faintest idea what the book is about, other than drinking, eating, pissing and shitting. Maybe like all the best books, what it's really about is words. Words. Words.
What I don't get is, how can you be obsessed with a book written in a language you can't even speak?
Je vous en conjure, pardonnez-moi. Je suis un avocate. C'est la savante chose que je
something slightly tragic about men in their 40s who still wear leather biker jackets with all the diagonal zips? Like people who think they're outrageous because they've read a few dirty books. Stop it! And Janie is now sniffing Margie's arse.
The first time I ever heard about Gargantua and Pantagruel was from a scholarly man who told me that, fantastic as the book is, the tragically limiting thing is that no one ever talks about or remembers anything apart from chapter 13, book 1, and there are 5 volumes, so it really annoyed him that the goose chapter is the only one that anyone ever talks about, but that's the only one he told me about, so he was perpetuating his own pet peeve.
I agree with you that this is typical Rabelaisian novelty humor. I think we can also see the birth of Gargantua as a satire of medieval learning and scholasticism, which was very dogma-based. According to the medieval bestiary tradition, weasels conceive through the mouth and deliver their babies through the ear. And then
I was once in a Swiss chateau, for reasons I won't go into, and I came across an edition of D'Artagnan's memoirs, which I thought was mad because I hadn't realised D'Artagnan was a real person. But he was, and his throat was ripped out by a musket ball in Maastricht, where he's buried. But since he could obviously read and write, and because he was French, and because he was born in the early 1600s, I'm hereby asserting that D'Artagnan read Rabelais, and he loved it. And we all know those people who are brilliant conversationalists. They're fascinated by absolutely everything and they're well read. Oh my God. But quoting great poets and philosophers all the time, it's not really fair, is it? It's like getting your dad to beat up the school bully. You know, it's far more courageous to quote yourself and risk getting your head kicked in after the bell goes. Having said that, I'm going to quote someone now. Long books, when read, are often overpraised because the reader wishes to convince himself and others that he's not wasted his time. But this novel is a kind of self-help book for me. It's a guidebook of sorts, how to be more at ease with your bodily functions, how to be bawdy and ribald. But unfortunately it hasn't worked for me because I still cannot spend a penny in a shared urinal. I can't go in the trough, I'm sorry. I need a cubicle. I need some personal space. I need some private time. Once I'm in the cubicle, I'm still mentally shackled. That's why I'm a committed porcelain pisser.
Some men like to splash directly into the water, but I'm far shyer than I ought to, because the kind of guy who's my cat's gonna piss
trying to wash your ruff, your best bet is to actually leave it on while you're in the shower and let the shampoo do the work for you. And the same is true of your codpiece.
Bitte sag mir, dass es in dem Buch ein Kapitel mit einer riesigen, sprechenden, süßen Katze gibt, die ihre eigene Insel regiert und die Leute Rätsel lösen lässt.
Ja, natürlich.
Oh my God, I hate leaving voicemails. But at least now I know you got my cell number. Call me, Ishmael.
The English language has subsumed so many other languages that to speak it is to be polyglottal by default. This is my contentious contention. Some book botherers think that reading novels in translation is a pitiful waste of time because a writer's work is indelibly bound to their use of language, so any translation must be pure shite. You can no more translate the magic of a great French sentence into English than you can translate a shepherd's pie into a hot air balloon. I don't actually agree with that because for me, all reading is translation. And there's a line from a poem that mentions a street at midnight that's held in a lunar synthesis. But what's that? Lunar is an English word, synthesis is an English word, but the phrase means a lamppost, a light that imitates the moon synthetically. So you have to translate it from English back into English in your own noggin. Or in the month of red leaves I climbed to a bed of fire. What month of red leaves? Why not just say autumn, if that's what you mean? Because the writer respects the intellect of the reader. Weird language tickles us awake as we drive along the dear track of life, so we don't nod off at the wheel and neither career nor careen into the crevasse or ravine.
What special affinities appeared to him to exist between the moon and woman? Her splendor when visible, her attraction when invisible.
That very adoring moonlit comparison wasn't from Rabelais, it was from James Joyce's Ulysses. But it was very close to something from Book 3, Chapter 32 of Gargantua and Pantagruel, if any scholars are watching this. Who else robbed Rabelais' grave? Tristram Shandy, Gulliver's Travels, obviously. Moby Dick, I would say. Yngwie Malmsteen. Maybe one other bloke.
To be fair to you, you got away with this for a very long time. So I'll take my hat off to you in a way. But I've seen this a lot. Especially with you clever blokes. You think you can outsmart everyone because you've got a plan. But you always slip up somewhere and end up in a room like this. Look at your body language, Bill. That's not how an innocent man sits. So, help me out here. Let me read you something. See if it jogs your memory. Just so you know, we're aware of As You Like It, one of your comedies. You actually mentioned Gargantua's mouth in that play. Not your best known work, but it does place you at the scene. So that proves you knew about Rabelais' work by at least 1599. And 1 year later, you wrote Hamlet. Okay, let me read to you from Gargantua and Pantagruel. Tell me if any words jump out at you, all right? You're philosophers who complain that everything has been described by the ancients and that there is nothing left for them to discover are only too patently wrong. So much as you can see of the heavens, which you call the phenomena, so much as the earth reveals to you, so much as the sea and all the rivers contain, is not to be compared to what is concealed in the earth. Ring any bells, my liege? You took the last chapter of the last volume of an obscure French novel and you shrink-wrapped it. You made sure nobody else could claim it but you. It may have taken a while, but you've been rumbled, mate.
Book 4, Chapter 55. They're sailing along in a big ship and no one's around for millions of miles, and they can hear weird words from what sound to them like ancient civilizations. But they can't see anyone, so they wonder if it's an interdimensional situation where different universes are clashing and overlapping. Bearing in mind this was written in the 1500s by God. Turns out that frozen words from centuries ago are floating over the water and above the ship, and as they drift they begin to melt, and as they melt, words in long lost languages become audible. Hi, thank you for ringing back. I'm talking about Rabelais again, I'm afraid. Do you remember the chapter where voices get trapped in ice and then hundreds of years later they melt and you can hear the sounds? Well, there is a thing called temperature inversion. And have you ever walked along a riverbank at night and you suddenly hear a football crowd chanting, but you're nowhere near a football stadium? So you wonder, how has sound kind of escaped its natural tethering? And what happens is you have different air pockets, hot and cold. Sound prefers to travel in cold, and if it bumps into warm, then it makes an emergency landing and bounces back in a weird place. So I was wondering, what if instead of sound landing 100 feet further than it should, what if it landed 100 years further because of some currently unknown weather condition? I don't know.
When I see green consume and rot, then I enjoy my prophecy, my tears are not. Gather around my boozy clan. Laughter is the turning over and the night.
Book 1, Chapter 13. How Gargantua's wonderful understanding became known to his father Grangousier by the invention of an arsewipe. By long and curious experiments, I have invented a method of wiping my arse which is the most lordly, the most excellent, and the most convivial that e'er was seen, said Gargantua. What's that? Asked Grangousier. Once I wiped myself on a lady's velvet mask, and I found it fine, for the silky softness was most voluptuous to my rump. Another time on one of her hoods, which I found was just as good. Another time on a lady's scarf, another time on some earmuffs made of crimson fluff. But there were a lot of wretched spangles on them, and they peeled my arse like a potato. That trouble passed when I wiped myself on a page's bonnet, all feathered in the Swiss fashion. Then, as I was shitting behind a bush, I found a March-born cat. I wiped myself on him, but his claws exulcerated my whole perineum. Then I wiped myself with sage, fennel, aniseed, marjoram, roses, gourd leaves, cabbages, beets, fine shoots, mallow. Yes, said Grangousier, but which wipe did you find the best? I was coming to that, said Gargantua. You shall soon hear the whole story. I wiped myself with hay, with straw, with litter, with cow's hair, with wool, with paper, but as you may know, paper on your arse and knackers tears your fundament to tatters. What, my little rapscallion? Said Grangousier. Dost thou rhyme already? Yes, my lord the king, answered Gargantua. I can rhyme in reams. I can rhyme from Ruddington to Rome, till my bones groan. The squits and the fits of the spasmodic shits tell your guts to abandon quarters. The tripe that you pipe always needs a good wipe from your nuts to your holiest orders. Oh, my pretty little waggish boy, said Grangousier, what excellent wit thou hast. Afterwards, said Gargantua, I wiped my tail with a pillow, with a slipper, with a pouch, then with a chicken, with a pigeon, and a cormorant, then with a falconer's lure, and a lawyer's chapeau. But to conclude, I say and maintain that of all the bum-soothers, rectum rags, and arse-hankies, there is none in the world comparable to the well-downed neck of a goose. You get a miraculous sensation in your arsehole, both from the softness of the down and from the temperate heat of the goose herself.